My name is Ethan and I am 23 years old. I met Vivian a year and a half ago at a friend's party. At that time, I had just graduated from college and she was a junior employee in a company. We met at first sight and started dating soon after. Vivian's lively and cheerful personality attracted me deeply, and our relationship has been stable and beautiful. Until that fateful night, everything changed. That day, Vivian told me she had to attend an important company event and needed to dress up. I didn't pay much attention until I saw how she looked when she left. She was wearing much heavier makeup than usual and a tight black dress that showed off her curvy back. It was a far cry from her usual light makeup and simple attire. I couldn't help but feel a little uneasy, but I was happy for her and hoped that she would have an enjoyable evening at the corporate event. After Vivian left, I received a text message from her saying that the event might last late and that I didn't need to wait for her. After that, I never heard from her again. At first, I wasn't too worried, but as the night progressed and the rainstorm outside the window got heavier and heavier, an indescribable anxiety gradually rose in my heart. I fidgeted and paced around the living room, looking out the window from time to time, hoping to catch a glimpse of Vivian. But except for the sound of the rain hitting the window, everything was quiet. I picked up my cell phone to call her, but found that her cell phone was turned off. Details flashed in my mind. Vivian's elaborate dress, her last text message, and her cell phone, which was now turned off. A terrible thought began to form in my mind. Was Vivian hiding something from me? Did she really go to a company event? Or is she doing something I don't know about? I tried to convince myself that I was just being paranoid. Vivian had always been a loyal and reliable girlfriend, and we'd never had any trust issues. But deep down, the seeds of doubt had taken root. I kept thinking back to the past, trying to find clues to prove my suspicions wrong. But the more I recalled, the more I felt that things were not that simple. That night, I tossed and turned and could hardly sleep. Vivian's figure lingered in my mind. Outside the window, the rainstorm was raging, and the sound of thunder seemed to signal the arrival of a disaster. I knew that something subtle had changed between Vivian and me, and this was just the beginning. As the night wore on, my anxiety increased. Vivian never came home, and her cell phone was always off. I sat on the couch, and all sorts of horrible scenarios kept popping up in my mind. Vivian was in danger, or worse, she hadn't been at the company event at all. Finally, at around 2 a.m., I couldn't stand the torment any longer. I picked up my cell phone and called Vivian's sister, Lily, who works for the same company as Vivian and was at the event tonight. When I got through, I explained the situation to her and hoped to get some news about Vivian. To my surprise, Lily told me that the event had been canceled as early as 8 p.m. due to inclement weather. What made me feel even more uneasy was that Lily said she had heard Vivian's boss, Mr. Lancaster, mention that he was going to have dinner with someone before the event was canceled. The news hit me like a hammer. If the event was canceled, why hadn't Vivian come home? Why had she turned off her cell phone? And who was Mr. Lancaster talking about? All sorts of questions swirled in my head, and I felt dizzy and nauseous. After hanging up, I paced back and forth in my room, trying to clear my head. I remembered that Vivian had given me her email password, just in case. As much as I've always thought it was important to respect each other's privacy, right now, I had no choice. I had to find answers. I opened Vivian's email and started searching for possible clues. At first, I didn't find anything special. But when I checked her deleted emails, an email with the title, Merry Christmas, caught my attention. It was an email from Mr. Lancaster, dated 2 weeks ago. The content of the email seemed ordinary, just some holiday wishes. But when I read it carefully, I found some unusual details. Mr. Lancaster mentioned a special Christmas party and hinted that it would be a night to remember. What I found most disturbing was the sentence at the end of the email. I've booked a hotel across town, away from the hustle and bustle. I can't wait to spend the night with you. My heart sank. The email, coupled with Vivian's erratic behavior tonight, all seemed to point to a terrible truth. But I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I needed more evidence. I began to think about the details of the past few weeks. I remembered a few times when Vivian came home from work smelling like an unfamiliar cologne. Another time, I caught a glimpse of a text message on her cell phone that read, "I miss you." But when I asked, she fumbled and said a friend had sent it by mistake. In the past, I might not have cared about these minor details. But now, they all seem to be arrows pointing to the truth, pushing my doubts into a deeper abyss. I knew that I had to find more conclusive evidence as soon as possible, even if the truth might break my heart, because I would rather face the harsh reality than the torment of not knowing the truth. Late at night, I waited anxiously in the living room, the ticking of the clock sounding harshly in the silence. At 2 a.m., I heard a key in the lock and Vivian came back. When she stumbled through the door, I immediately realized something was wrong. Her makeup was messy, her hair was disheveled, and her high heels were gone. What shocked me even more was that she reeked of alcohol and was obviously drunk. Vivian rarely drank, much less at this level. She walked drunkenly to the couch and collapsed on it, mumbling something incoherently. I approached her and tried to help her up, but I realized that her skirt had been torn with a long slit, almost from her waist to the base of her thighs. My heart sank instantly. It all pointed to a possibility I didn't want to believe. I tried to wake Vivian and ask her what had happened, but she only mumbled vaguely and eventually fell into a deep sleep under the influence of alcohol. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, and Vivian's erratic behavior replayed in my mind. The way she dressed up, the late-night drunkenness, the ripped dress. All the signs pointed to the fact that she had gone through something unspeakable tonight. The email from Mr. Lancaster, hinting at an unforgettable evening with Vivian, flashed through my mind. A horrible thought took shape in my mind, but I refused to believe it. I told myself that maybe there was a rational explanation for all this. Maybe I was just thinking too much. The next morning, as I was preparing to talk to Vivian, I found the dress she had worn last night on the bedroom floor. When I picked it up, I noticed not only a tear in the dress, but also some suspicious spots and a male odor. My heart raced and a sense of foreboding gripped me. I picked up the dress with a trembling hand and examined every detail. As the evidence became clearer and clearer, the last vestiges of hope in my mind were shattered. Vivian had obviously done something out of the ordinary last night, and it wasn't me. A great wave of grief and anger swept through my body. I felt like I was spinning, and I could hardly breathe. I had always thought that our relationship was based on honesty and trust, but now it had all gone to hell, and Vivian, the girl I had loved for a year and a half, had betrayed me. A million images flashed through my mind. Vivian having dinner with Mr. Lancaster, lingering in the hotel, her well-groomed look. Every detail was like a sharp knife stabbing into my heart. I couldn't believe that while I was worried sick about her, she was doing something unfaithful. Shock, anger, sadness, jealousy, all kinds of emotions were intertwined in my heart, almost tearing me apart. I felt a wave of nausea, rushed into the restroom, vomiting into the toilet. My world fell apart overnight, and I didn't know how to face this cruel reality. When Vivian finally woke up, I made up my mind. I was going to confront her. I was going to hear the truth from her own lips. Even though deep down, I knew that the truth would crush me, I had no choice. Because I'd rather face the brutal truth than the torture of not knowing the truth. I took a deep breath and waited for Vivian to come out of the bedroom, ready to face the toughest moment of my life. I asked Vivian to meet me at a restaurant for a face-to-face confrontation. I chose a relatively quiet corner, not wanting our conversation to attract attention. When Vivian walked into the restaurant, I hardly recognized her. She seemed unusually calm and confident, as if last night had never happened. Fighting back the pain and anger in my heart, I bluntly asked her about her whereabouts last night, and Vivian admitted in no uncertain terms that she had not been at the company event, but had spent the night with Mr. Lancaster. She spoke in a matter-of-fact tone, as if she were discussing something perfectly ordinary. I was in disbelief. I questioned how she could do this to me, how she could cheat and betray so recklessly in our relationship. But Vivian's response shocked me even more. She said that she was tired of our relationship and that Mr. Lancaster could offer her a better life. She showed no remorse and blamed me for being naive and old-fashioned. Every word was like a sharp blade that pierced my heart. I couldn't believe that the girl I loved so much had turned into this cold, strange person. She talked about her admiration for Mr. Lancaster and their passion in the hotel, as if she didn't care about my feelings. I felt a sense of suffocation. The air in the restaurant seemed to freeze, and the noise around me sounded distant and distorted. Countless moments flashed through my mind. The thumping of our hearts when we first met, the sweet smiles on our date, the longing we had when we were planning for the future. All of this turned to ashes in Vivian's cold words. Fighting back tears, I told Vivian that I couldn't continue the relationship. I asked her to move out of my apartment by tonight and to leave the key behind, and Vivian agreed without hesitation, even saying that she had been planning to do so for a long time. I felt a chill down my spine. The warm and kind girl I loved had turned into such a cold-blooded and selfish stranger overnight. I didn't understand. Was the year and a half between us so meaningless to her? I sat in the cafeteria and watched Vivian leave without looking back. The sound of her heels hitting the floor sounded so harsh to my ears. I felt dead, as if a part of me had disappeared with her. Back home, I saw that Vivian had packed her things. She'd left her keys behind, not even a farewell note. I looked around the apartment where we used to live, and every corner was filled with our memories. But now, those memories only brought endless pain. I sat on the sofa for a long time, replaying today's conversation over and over again in my mind. And every word and every expression of Vivian's was like a brand, deep in my heart. I feel sad. I feel angry. More is endless disappointment and incomprehension. I don't understand how love can become so fragile and vulnerable. After Vivian moved out of my apartment, I thought the nightmare was over. However, a few days later, I received messages from friends who said that Vivian was spreading rumors about me everywhere. She claimed that I had cheated on her first and that she was just the victim in the relationship. She told everyone that she was with Mr. Lancaster because she needed comfort and support in the face of my betrayal. I couldn't believe it when I learned of these rumors that Vivian, after cheating and betraying me, would try to undermine my reputation by such underhanded tactics. She made up stories about my infidelity, tearfully recounting how she was heartbroken and how she found solace in Mr. Lancaster in her despair. She played the role of the victim skillfully, gaining the sympathy of others. At first, I felt extremely angry and aggrieved. I couldn't believe that the girl I had loved so much could lie and cheat so freely. I tried to explain the truth to my friends, telling them that Vivian was the one who betrayed our relationship. But in front of Vivian's hard-earned lies, my explanations paled into insignificance. Some of my friends began to doubt me and asked me if I was really unfaithful to Vivian. I felt so frustrated and helpless, and Vivian's lies were like a big net that seemed to envelop my whole world. I began to doubt myself and everything between us. I even started to blame myself. Maybe I didn't do enough in the relationship to bring about this result. Just when I was about to be crushed by Vivian's lies, an unexpected encounter changed everything. That day, I met Vivian's sister Lily on the street and we talked. Lily told me that she knew about Vivian and Mr. Lancaster all along. She was very disappointed and angry at what Vivian had done. Lily showed me some of the evidence she had kept, including emails and text messages between Vivian and Mr. Lancaster. The evidence clearly showed that the relationship between Vivian and Mr. Lancaster had started several months ago, and that Vivian had initiated the seduction of Mr. Lancaster, and Lily also told me that Vivian had once bragged to her that she could get more money and status with Mr. Lancaster. I read the emails and text messages with a sense of suffocation. They detailed intimate interactions between Vivian and Mr. Lancaster, discussing plans for rendezvous at the office, at a hotel, or even at our home, with Vivian's words revealing her disdain and boredom with me, mocking me for my naivety and obstinacy, and saying that I would never be able to satisfy her needs. My heart broke a little with each word. I felt anger, sadness, and more than anything else, a bitter disappointment. I realized that the Vivian I loved was probably just my wishful thinking from the very beginning. The real her was a complete stranger, a cold, selfish, and scrupulous person. I organized the evidence and decided to expose Vivian's lies in front of my friends. I invited them, and Vivian too, to confront me face to face and to reveal the truth of the matter. When I showed the emails and text messages to everyone, Vivian's face turned pale and she knew her lies had been exposed. She tried to defend herself, tried to play those dirty tricks again, But in front of the ironclad evidence, her lies seemed so fragile and ridiculous. My friends watched in shock as the truth finally dawned on them. They apologized to me, feeling guilty for their suspicions and accusations. They also expressed their disappointment and anger towards Vivian, blaming her for her selfishness and infidelity. I look at Vivian, and the love and warmth I once felt is gone. All I felt was a deep sense of exhaustion and sadness. I realized that everything between us was built on lies and deception. Now that the lie had been exposed, our relationship had come to an end. I calmly told Vivian that I didn't want to see her anymore, and that there was no chance for us to be together. Vivian cried and begged for forgiveness, but I knew that it was just another one of her lies. I turned away, leaving the past behind me. After the truth came out, I thought the nightmare was finally over. But for Vivian, the nightmare had only just begun. As her lies were exposed, her life began to fall apart. First, there was her sister, Lily, who was furious and disappointed when she learned of Vivian's actions. She couldn't believe that her own sister could be so despicable and unfaithful. After a heated argument, Lily decided to kick Vivian out of the apartment they shared. She told Vivian not to come back until she truly repented and took responsibility for her behavior. Without the support of her sister, Vivian is at a loss. She tries to seek help from her parents, hoping that they will give her a place to stay. But when her parents found out the truth, they too were very disappointed in Vivian. They blamed Vivian for being selfish and irresponsible, saying she had failed her family. They refused to accept Vivian, telling her that she must bear the consequences herself. Vivian's friends left her in droves. When her infidelity became public, friends who had praised her beauty and charm expressed their contempt and disdain for her behavior. They said that Vivian was a morally corrupt woman, someone who could not be trusted or respected. Some of the men who had courted Vivian lost interest in her. They said they wanted a girl who was truly loyal and kind, not a bad woman like Vivian. To make matters worse, Vivian is having trouble at work. Her boss, Mr. Lancaster, the man who once promised her a bright future, is now giving her the cold shoulder, telling Vivian that the company doesn't need a morally challenged employee and that her behavior has affected the company's reputation. He tells Vivian that the company doesn't need a morally challenged employee and that her behavior has affected the company's reputation. Vivian tries to use her charm and tactics to win Mr. Lancaster back, but this time, these tactics don't work. Mr. Lancaster coldly tells her that she is no longer the perfect person he wants her to be. Vivian felt desperate and helpless. The beauty and charisma she once prided herself on paled in the face of the truth. She realizes that the only reason she was praised and admired was because she was wearing a mask of perfection. Now, when this mask was torn off, she realized that she had nothing. She tries to find a new place to live, but no one will rent to her. Her history of infidelity is a stigma that makes people avoid her. She tries to find a new job, but no company will hire her. Her resume is a waste of paper, and no one wants to give her a chance. Vivian began to realize that she was paying the price for her actions. She used to think that she could cheat and betray without any consequences. But now, reality had slapped her in the face. She felt isolated, desperate, and helpless as never before. I was about to go for a walk on a cold Sunday afternoon when I heard a knock at the door. When I opened the door, I was surprised to see Vivian standing outside. We hadn't seen each other for months since the last time the truth came out. Vivian looked very haggard and tired. Her eyes were red and swollen, as if she had been crying for a long time. She asked me to let her in, saying she had something to say to me. Despite some inner hesitation, I let her in. Upon entering the house, Vivian apologized to me, feeling very sorry for what she had done in the past. She admitted that she had serious self-destructive tendencies and trust issues that had never really been addressed in our relationship. She said that she always had trouble believing that people would truly love her, so she constantly tested my feelings through deceit and betrayal. She was afraid of commitment and of being hurt, so she chose to hurt others first. Vivian told me that after losing me, her life completely fell apart. She lost the support of her family and friends, her job, and her reputation. She said that these painful experiences made her realize that she had to take responsibility for her actions. She began seeking psychological counseling to try to resolve her deep-seated trauma and problems. She says she now truly understands her mistakes and genuinely wants to change. Listening to Vivian's words, I felt a mixture of emotions. On the one hand, I was glad for her awakening and repentance. I know it is not easy to admit one's mistakes. It takes a lot of courage and determination. But on the other hand, I also know clearly that there is no longer any possibility between us. The hurt and betrayal had left a deep wound in my heart. Even if Vivian truly repents, I can't trust her or live with her again. I calmly told Vivian that I accepted her apology and was happy that she had come to her senses. But I also made it clear that it was over between us. I said that I was trying to move on and that I had new plans and expectations for the future. I didn't want to be haunted by the past. I wanted a fresh start. With tears in her eyes, Vivian pleaded with me to give her another chance, saying that she had really changed and that she couldn't live without me. But I knew it was just another one of her lies. Real change takes time and action, not promises. I told her that I believed she was capable of change, but that it would take some effort on her part. Our relationship is irreparable, but I hope she can learn from this lesson and become a better person. In the end, I wished Vivian would find true happiness and love. I told her that I didn't hate her, but I couldn't forgive her either. We all need to move on and take responsibility for our own lives. Vivian left in tears, knowing that this might be the last time we would ever see each other. As I closed the door, I felt an inexplicable sense of relief. Although the pain of the past was still there, I knew that I was out of the darkness. I was no longer haunted by betrayal and deceit, and I had regained control of my life. I was looking forward to the future, to a new relationship, a relationship based on honesty and trust. By sharing this story, I hope to give some inspiration to those who have similar experiences. Love requires courage and wisdom. We need to learn to distinguish between truth and falsehood, and learn to be responsible for our own choices. When we encounter betrayal and hurt, we need to learn to let go, learn to look forward. Only by letting go of the baggage of the past can we embrace a better future. This may not be an easy road, but I believe that as long as we adhere to their own principles, adhere to the pursuit of true love, we will eventually find their own happiness. Maybe that's the point of going through all this. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.